Self-doubt and insecurities, these are the silent companions that follow so many of us through life, whispering in the back of our minds that we're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. But what if I told you these feelings, as universal as they are, don't have to control your life? What if, instead of being obstacles, they could become opportunities for growth? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words remind us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond, and that's where Stoicism comes in. Today, we're going to explore 18 Stoic truths that can help you overcome self-doubt and insecurities. These principles aren't just ancient wisdom, they're practical tools you can use to reframe your mindset, build resilience, and take charge of your life. Whether you're struggling with a lack of confidence, feeling overwhelmed by comparison, or simply unsure of your next steps, this video is here to guide you. Together, we'll uncover how Stoicism can help you turn self-doubt into self-mastery and insecurities into stepping stones for growth. So let's begin this journey, not to erase these feelings, but to understand them, work with them, and ultimately rise above them. The first step to overcoming self-doubt is understanding what you can and cannot control. Self-doubt often creeps in when we fixate on external opinions, outcomes, or circumstances that are entirely beyond our influence. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, and aversion. In a word, whatever is of our own doing." In other words, our thoughts, actions, and reactions are within our control, but the opinions of others, the results of our efforts, and the unpredictable nature of life are not. Think about a job interview, for instance. You can prepare thoroughly, practice your answers, and present yourself confidently. Those are all within your power. But you can't control whether the interviewer likes you, how other candidates perform, or even the final decision. If you focus too much on these uncontrollable elements, it's easy to spiral into self-doubt. Instead, shift your attention to what you can control: your preparation, your attitude, and how you choose to respond to the experience, regardless of the outcome. Take a moment to reflect. What's a situation in your life where you've been worrying about things outside your control? How might your perspective shift if you redirected your energy toward what you can influence? This simple yet powerful Stoic principle reminds us that true confidence comes not from trying to control the uncontrollable, but from mastering our own minds and actions. Do you truly know your strengths and weaknesses? It's a simple question, but one that can feel uncomfortable to answer honestly. Stoicism teaches us that self-awareness isn't just about recognizing what we're good at, it's about confronting the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. This honest self-assessment is the foundation of growth, and it's something the Stoics held in high regard. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often wrote about the importance of self-reflection. He believed that without a clear understanding of who we are, flaws, and all, we can never truly improve. Think about it this way. If you're afraid of public speaking, avoiding every opportunity to speak in front of others might feel safe in the short term. But over time, that avoidance only reinforces the fear. Stoicism challenges us to face those insecurities head-on. By acknowledging our weaknesses, we take the first step toward turning them into strength. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest with ourselves. Let's say you struggle with procrastination. Instead of brushing it off as a minor habit, Stoicism would encourage you to dig deeper. Why do you procrastinate? Is it fear of failure, perfectionism? Once you identify the root cause, you can start addressing it. This process isn't easy, it requires courage and humility. But the reward is immense. By confronting your insecurities, you create the opportunity for real, lasting change. So here's a question to reflect on. What is one insecurity you've been avoiding, and how can you start addressing it today? The answer might not come easily, but the act of asking the question is where growth begins. The Stoics had a powerful tool in their mental toolkit, one that might seem counterintuitive at first: negative visualization. This practice wasn't about dwelling on the dark or becoming pessimistic. It was about preparing the mind for life's inevitable challenges. Historically, Stoics like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius used this technique to confront their fears head-on. Seneca once wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise." In other words, by imagining the worst-case scenarios, they stripped those fears of their power, making them easier to face when they arose. So, how does this work in practice? Let's say you're about to give a public speech and the thought of it fills you with dread. Instead of avoiding that fear, the Stoic approach would be to lean into it. Picture the worst that could happen. Maybe you stumble over your words or the audience seems uninterested. Now, imagine yourself navigating that situation calmly. What would you do? How would you recover? By visualizing the worst, you're not just rehearsing failure, you're building resilience. You're showing yourself that even if things don't go perfectly, you can handle it. This process reduces the fear of the unknown and helps you approach the situation with confidence rather than self-doubt. Here's a modern example. Think about preparing for a job interview. Instead of worrying about what might go wrong, take a moment to visualize the toughest questions you could be asked, or even the possibility of not getting the job. By mentally preparing for these outcomes, you're not only less likely to be caught off guard, but you're also more likely to stay composed and present during the actual interview. The fear of failure loses its grip when you've already faced it in your mind. Now, it's your turn to try this. Take a moment to reflect on something that's been causing you anxiety or self-doubt. What's the worst that could happen? Play it out in your mind step by step. Then, ask yourself, how would I respond? How would I move forward? This simple exercise can be incredibly freeing. It shifts your perspective from fearing the unknown to feeling prepared and capable, no matter what comes your way. So, give it a try and see how it changes the way you approach your challenges. What others think of you is temporary and ultimately irrelevant. This is a core Stoic truth that can free you from the weight of self-doubt and insecurity. The Stoics believed that external judgments, whether praise or criticism, are fleeting like leaves tossed in the wind. They come and go, but they don't define who you are. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Think about that for a moment. Why do we give so much power to the opinions of others, often at the expense of our own peace of mind? The Stoic perspective is simple yet profound. External judgments are not within your control, and therefore they're not worth your energy. Someone's praise today could turn into criticism tomorrow, and their criticism might shift to admiration next week. These opinions are as unpredictable as the weather, and just as meaningless when it comes to your true worth. What matters is your internal compass, your values, your integrity, and your actions. When you focus on living in alignment with these principles, the noise of external judgments fades into the background. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're at work and you've just presented a project you've poured your heart into. One colleague praises your effort while another dismisses it as unimpressive. If you're caught up in external judgments, this situation could leave you oscillating between pride and self-doubt. But if you adopt the Stoic mindset, you'd ask yourself, did I do my best? Did I act with integrity and diligence? If the answer is yes, then the opinions of others, whether positive or negative, become irrelevant. You've already won by staying true to your own standards. So here's a question to ponder. How would your life change if you stopped worrying about others' opinions? What would you do differently if you truly believed that external judgments are fleeting and unimportant? This shift in perspective isn't just about ignoring criticism, it's about reclaiming your power and focusing on what truly matters. When you let go of the need for external validation, you create space for confidence, clarity, and a deeper connection to your own values. And that's where real growth begins. What if your insecurities weren't obstacles holding you back, but stepping stones leading you toward growth? This is the heart of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. It's a Stoic principle that invites us to not just accept what happens in our lives, but to embrace it wholeheartedly, even the struggles. The idea isn't to pretend everything is perfect or to ignore pain. Instead, it's about recognizing that every experience, good or bad, is part of your journey, a chance to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it happens, and you will be happy." In other words, happiness doesn't come from controlling every outcome, but from finding peace with whatever life throws your way. This mindset shifts how we see challenges. Instead of resisting them, we start to see them as opportunities. A setback isn't just a failure, it's a teacher. A moment of self-doubt isn't a weakness, it's a chance to build resilience. Take the example of someone who fails at a project they've poured their heart into. At first, it feels crushing, but over time, they begin to see what went wrong and why. Maybe they uncover a skill they need to develop or a blind spot they hadn't noticed before. That failure becomes a turning point, a moment of clarity that propels them forward. This is Amor Fati in action, finding value in what initially feels like a loss. Now, think about your own life. Can you recall a time when something didn't go as planned, but it led to an unexpected lesson or growth? Maybe it was a rejection that pushed you to try harder, or a mistake that taught you humility. These moments, as difficult as they were, likely shaped you in ways you couldn't have anticipated. That's the beauty of Amor Fati. It reminds us that even in our struggles there's meaning. And when we learn to see that meaning, we stop fearing the unknown and start embracing the journey. Let's take a moment to consider how we end our days. For most of us, the evening is a time to unwind, maybe scroll through our phones or catch up on a show. But what if, instead of letting the day slip away, we used those final minutes to pause and reflect? The Stoics believed that this practice, daily reflection, was one of the most powerful tools for building self-awareness and quieting the noise of self-doubt. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, made this a cornerstone of his life. His personal writings, collected in Meditations, are essentially a record of his daily reflections, a way to examine his actions, thoughts, and emotions with honesty and clarity. So, what does this look like in practice? It's simple but profound. At the end of each day, take just 5 to 10 minutes to ask yourself, what went well today? Where did I fall short? What thoughts or feelings pulled me away from my values? This isn't about beating yourself up or dwelling on mistakes. It's about observing without judgment, learning from your experiences, and gradually becoming more attuned to your inner world. Over time, this habit helps you recognize patterns. Maybe you tend to doubt yourself in certain situations, or perhaps you notice how often fear holds you back. That awareness is the first step toward growth. To make this easier, try using a simple framework. Start by identifying one thing you're proud of from the day, something that aligns with your values or shows progress. Then acknowledge one area where you could improve. Finally, end with gratitude, something or someone you're thankful for. This three-step approach keeps the reflection balanced and constructive, helping you build confidence while staying grounded. Think about it. When was the last time you truly paused to learn from your day? What did you discover about yourself? This practice isn't just about looking back. It's about moving forward with greater clarity and purpose. By making reflection a daily ritual, you're not only building self-awareness but also creating a foundation of inner strength that can carry you through life's challenges. So tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself, what did I learn about myself today? The answer might surprise you. Let's take a moment to reflect on this powerful idea from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. At first glance, it might sound counterintuitive. How can something that stands in our way actually propel us forward? But this is where Stoicism offers a profound shift in perspective. Instead of seeing obstacles as roadblocks, the Stoics teach us to view them as stepping stones, opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about it. Every challenge we face is a chance to exercise our inner strength. When life throws something difficult our way, it's not just a test of patience, it's an invitation to rise to the occasion. Take the example of Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers. Born into slavery, he faced unimaginable hardships early in life. Yet, rather than allowing his circumstances to define him, he used them as a foundation to build his philosophy. Epictetus didn't just survive his struggles, he thrived because of them, teaching others that our power lies not in what happens to us, but in how we choose to respond. Now consider your own life for a moment. What obstacle are you facing right now? Maybe it's a setback at work, a personal struggle, or even a fear that's been holding you back. Instead of viewing it as a problem, what if you saw it as a chance to prove to yourself just how capable you are? Challenges don't just test us, they reveal us. They show us what we're made of and, in the process, help us build the confidence to face even greater trials in the future. So, the next time you encounter a hurdle, pause and ask yourself, how can this make me stronger? What can I learn from this? By shifting your mindset, you'll find that even the most daunting obstacles can become opportunities for growth. After all, as the Stoics remind us, the very thing that seems to block your path might just be the force that pushes you forward. Are you living in alignment with your true self? It's a question worth asking, especially when self-doubt creeps in. Often, that nagging sense of uncertainty stems from drifting away from what truly matters to us, our core values, our natural instincts, and the person we know we're meant to be. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature, and it's a principle that can transform how we see ourselves and the world around us. Epictetus once said, "Know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly." In other words, confidence and clarity come from embracing your authentic self, not from trying to fit into someone else's mold. Think about it. When we chase external validation or try to live up to expectations that aren't our own, we create a gap between who we are and who we think we should be. That gap is where self-doubt thrives, but when we align our actions with our values, when we live in harmony with our nature, we start to feel grounded, secure, and confident. Take, for example, someone who once struggled with self-doubt because they were pursuing a career their parents wanted for them. It wasn't until they made the brave decision to follow their passion for art that they found their confidence. By staying true to themselves, they not only silenced their doubts but also discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment they'd never known before. So, what about you? What changes can you make to live more authentically? Maybe it's a small shift, like setting aside time for a hobby you love, or perhaps it's a bigger decision, like reevaluating your career path. The key is to listen to that inner voice, the one that knows what feels right and true for you. Because when you live in accordance with your nature, self-doubt doesn't stand a chance. Your worth is not defined by success or failure. This is one of the most liberating truths Stoicism offers. Think about it. If you tie your self-esteem to outcomes, whether you land that promotion, win that competition, or achieve that goal, you're setting yourself up for a roller coaster of emotions. Why? Because outcomes are often unpredictable and beyond your control. Seneca once said, "The wise man looks to the purpose of all actions, not their results." In other words, it's not about what happens, but how you approach it. Let's break this down. When you focus on the effort, the process, the work, the commitment, you shift your energy to something you can control, your actions. This mindset doesn't just reduce self-doubt, it frees you from the paralyzing fear of failure. Imagine an athlete who trains tirelessly, not for the trophy, but for the love of the game. They know that winning isn't guaranteed, but they also know that their effort is where the real value lies. Win or lose, they walk away with pride because they've given it their all. So, how do you define success? Is it the external validation, the accolades, the numbers? Or is it the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've done your best regardless of the outcome? Take a moment to reflect on this. When you detach from the need for specific results, you reclaim your power. You stop measuring your worth by what you achieve and start valuing yourself for who you are and how you show up. That's where true confidence begins. How often do we let self-doubt creep in because we're looking at a situation through a narrow, unchanging lens? The Stoics believe that perspective is everything. It's not the events themselves that trouble us, but how we interpret them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that we can choose how we see the world. When we shift our perspective, challenges stop feeling like obstacles and start looking like opportunities for growth. Take, for example, someone who's struggling with a setback at work. Maybe they didn't get the promotion they were hoping for, and self-doubt starts to take over. But what if they reframed that experience? Instead of seeing it as a failure, they could view it as a chance to reassess their skills, identify areas for improvement, and set new goals. That shift in perspective transforms the situation from a source of insecurity into a stepping stone for progress. The Stoics called this the Art of Reframing, and it's a tool anyone can use to combat self-doubt. So, what's one situation in your life right now that you could look at differently? Is there a challenge you've been viewing as a dead end but could actually be a doorway to something greater? By choosing to see things through a new lens, you're not just reducing self-doubt, you're reclaiming your power to shape your own narrative, and that's where real growth begins. Self-doubt often stems from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. It's easy to get caught up in regrets about what we should have done differently or anxieties about what might go wrong tomorrow. But here's the Stoic truth: the only moment we truly have control over is this one. The past is already written and the future is uncertain. What matters most is how we choose to act right now. This is why Stoicism places such a strong emphasis on mindfulness and presence. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." In other words, our suffering often comes from our own mental habits, replaying old mistakes or imagining worst-case scenarios. The antidote: bringing ourselves back to the present moment. To practice this, try a simple breathing exercise. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in for a count of 4, hold it for 4, then exhale slowly for another count of 4. Repeat this cycle 5 times, focusing only on the sensation of your breath. Notice how your mind begins to settle, how the noise of past regrets or future worries starts to fade. This isn't just about relaxation, it's about training yourself to anchor in the here and now. When you're fully present, self-doubt loses its grip because you're no longer feeding it with unnecessary thoughts. Take a moment to reflect. How does staying present affect your confidence? When you're focused on what's right in front of you, do you feel more capable, more grounded? The Stoics believed that by mastering the present moment, we can navigate life with greater clarity and resilience. It's not about ignoring the past or dismissing the future entirely. It's about recognizing where your power lies. And that power is always in the present. How can humility help you grow? At first glance, humility might seem like an admission of weakness, but in Stoicism, it's quite the opposite. It's a source of strength, a way to ground yourself in reality and strip away the unnecessary pressure to be perfect. When you embrace humility, you're essentially saying, I don't have to know everything and I don't have to be everything. And that's liberating. Seneca once wrote, "No one is more unhappy than the person who never faces adversity, for such a person is not permitted to prove themselves." What he's pointing to here is the value of humility, the willingness to face your limitations, to stumble and to learn. Humility isn't about diminishing yourself. It's about recognizing that growth comes from acknowledging where you are, not where you think you should be. Think about a time when someone you admire admitted a mistake or a flaw. Did it make you respect them less, or did it make them more relatable, more human? Take the story of Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful leaders. Despite ruling an empire, he constantly reminded himself of his own imperfections in his writings. He didn't see humility as a weakness, but as a tool to stay grounded and focused on what truly mattered. By admitting his flaws, he became stronger, not weaker. So, what's one area where you can practice humility? Maybe it's in your work, where you feel the need to always have the right answers. Or perhaps it's in your relationships, where admitting you don't have it all figured out could open the door to deeper connections. Humility isn't about shrinking yourself, it's about making room for growth. And when you let go of the need to be perfect, you'll find that self-doubt begins to lose its grip. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's abundant. It's a powerful Stoic practice that helps you step away from the endless cycle of comparison and self-doubt. When you take a moment to appreciate what you already have, you're no longer fixated on what you lack or where you think you fall short. Instead, you start to see the abundance that's already present in your life, your strength, your opportunities, even the small joys that often go unnoticed. This shift in perspective can be transformative, especially when self-doubt tries to creep in. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words remind us that gratitude isn't just about grand achievements or material possessions. It's about recognizing the value in the ordinary, the everyday moments that make life meaningful. By focusing on these things, you build a sense of contentment and confidence that counters the nagging voice of self-doubt. Here's a simple exercise to bring this practice into your own life. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be monumental. Maybe it's the warmth of sunlight on your face, a kind word from a friend, or even the quiet stillness of a morning walk. The act of naming these things helps you anchor your mind in the present, where self-doubt has less power to take hold. Over time, this practice can rewire your thinking, helping you see the world and yourself with more clarity and appreciation. So, as you move through your day, pause and ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? It could be something as simple as the ability to take a deep breath or the chance to learn something new. Gratitude, after all, isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a habit, and a way of seeing the world that can help you rise above self-doubt and embrace the fullness of your life. Growth happens outside your comfort zone. It's a simple truth, but one that's easy to forget when we're faced with challenges or uncertainty. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't just tolerate discomfort, they embraced it as a vital part of becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: difficulties show what men are. Therefore, when a difficulty befalls you, remember that God, like a trainer of wrestlers, has matched you with a rough young man. In other words, hardship isn't something to avoid. It's an opportunity to prove to yourself what you're truly capable of. Think about it. Every time you step into something unfamiliar or uncomfortable, you're stretching your limits. Maybe it's tackling a new skill, having a difficult conversation, or even just facing a fear head-on. The Stoics believed that these moments of discomfort are where real growth happens. They're the moments that shape your character and reveal your strength. Take the story of Thomas Edison, for example. He failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the light bulb. Each failure could have been a reason to quit, but instead he saw each setback as a step closer to success. He didn't shy away from the discomfort of failure, he leaned into it. And because of that, he achieved something extraordinary. So, what's one thing you've been avoiding out of fear? Maybe it's starting a new project, making a big life change, or even just speaking up for yourself. Whatever it is, remember this: discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. By embracing it, you're not just enduring, you're growing, and that's where the magic happens. Are you living for others or for yourself? It's a question that cuts right to the heart of what it means to live authentically. The Stoics believed that true confidence and peace of mind come not from seeking approval or validation from the outside world, but from aligning your life with your deepest values, what they called virtue. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, put it this way: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. It's a powerful reminder that virtue isn't about how others perceive you. It's about the choices you make, the character you build, and the principles you stand by, no matter who's watching. Think about someone in your life who radiates quiet confidence. Chances are they're not chasing external validation or bending themselves to fit others' expectations. Instead, they're grounded in their own sense of integrity, doing what's right even when it's hard. Take, for example, the story of a teacher who chose to stay in a struggling school despite offers for more prestigious positions elsewhere. Why? Because she believed in the value of her work and the impact she could have on her students. Her decision wasn't about status or recognition. It was about living in alignment with her principles. Over time, that commitment to virtue gave her a kind of confidence that no job title or external praise could ever provide. So, what about you? What are the values that guide your life? Take a moment to reflect on whether your actions are driven by a desire to impress others or by a commitment to what you truly believe in. The Stoics teach us that when we focus on virtue, on being honest, kind, courageous, and just, we free ourselves from the need for external validation. We stop living for the applause of others and start living for something far more enduring, our own sense of self-respect, and that, more than anything, is the foundation of true confidence. Perfection is an illusion that fuels self-doubt. It's a trap many of us fall into, chasing an ideal that doesn't exist, only to feel inadequate when we inevitably fall short. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't see imperfection as a failure but as an inherent part of being human. Seneca once wrote, "We are all chained to our own flaws, but that doesn't mean we are broken. It means we are alive, growing, and learning." This perspective shifts the narrative from self-criticism to self-acceptance. Instead of battling your imperfections, what if you embrace them as proof of your humanity? Consider the story of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history. As a Roman emperor, he could have easily been consumed by the pressure to appear flawless. Yet, his writings reveal a man constantly reflecting on his shortcomings, his temper, his moments of doubt, his struggles with patience. Instead of hiding these imperfections, he acknowledged them, worked on them, and accepted that they were part of his journey. This acceptance didn't weaken him, it made him wiser, more compassionate, and more resilient. This Stoic practice of embracing imperfection isn't about giving up on growth. It's about recognizing that growth happens within the context of our humanity, not in spite of it. When you stop fighting your imperfections, you free yourself from the endless cycle of self-doubt and comparison. You begin to see your flaws not as obstacles but as opportunities, chances to learn, to connect with others, and to grow stronger. So, what's one imperfection you can embrace today? Maybe it's your tendency to overthink, your occasional lack of confidence, or even your struggle to stay organized. Whatever it is, acknowledge it without judgment. See it as a part of your story, not a stain on your character. Because in the end, it's not about being perfect, it's about being human, and that's more than enough. Have you ever wondered how others can help you overcome self-doubt? The Stoics believed that no one is an island, and that meaningful connections with others are essential for building strength and resilience. In fact, they saw relationships not as a burden, but as a source of power, a way to grow, learn, and find stability even in life's most turbulent moments. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself, but no one can truly master themselves alone." This idea reminds us that while self-mastery is key, it's often through the support and wisdom of others that we find the clarity and courage to face our insecurities. Think about it. Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of doubt, only to have a friend, mentor, or even a stranger offer a perspective that completely shifted your mindset? That's the power of community. Stoicism teaches us to seek out those who uplift us, challenge us, and remind us of our potential. It's not about relying on others to fix our problems, but about surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us to grow and who reflect the best versions of ourselves. Consider the story of Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics. Despite being a Roman emperor, he didn't isolate himself in his power. Instead, he leaned on his close circle of advisors and friends, people who kept him grounded and reminded him of his humanity. Through these relationships, he found the strength to lead with wisdom and humility, even in the face of immense pressure. His example shows us that confidence isn't built in solitude, it's nurtured through connection. So, who are the people in your life who help you see your worth when self-doubt creeps in? Take a moment to reflect on the relationships that bring out the best in you. Whether it's a family member, a colleague, or even an online community, these connections are more than just support, they're mirrors that reflect your strength back to you. And when you feel uncertain, remember that leaning on others isn't a sign of weakness. It's a step toward becoming the confident, resilient person you're meant to be. Confidence comes from knowing you can handle challenges. It's not about avoiding difficulties, but about being ready for them when they arise. The Stoics were masters of this mindset, and one of their most powerful practices was preparing for adversity long before it ever showed up. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Misfortune weighs most heavily on those who expect nothing but good fortune." In other words, when we assume life will always be smooth sailing, the first storm can feel devastating. But when we prepare for storms, we build the resilience to face them head-on. The Stoics didn't just hope for the best, they actively trained their minds to confront the worst. They practiced what's called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This exercise involves imagining potential challenges, setbacks, or even failures, and mentally rehearsing how you would respond. It's not about dwelling on the negative, but about building mental fortitude. By visualizing adversity, you strip away the fear of the unknown and replace it with a sense of readiness. You start to see challenges not as threats but as opportunities to grow. Take the story of Thomas Edison, for example. When his lab burned down in a massive fire, destroying years of work, he didn't despair. Instead, he calmly told his team, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." Edison's ability to face such a devastating setback with composure didn't come from luck, it came from preparation. He had already trained his mind to accept failure as part of the process, which allowed him to move forward without self-doubt or hesitation. So, how can you prepare for challenges in your life? Start by asking yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Then, instead of fearing it, plan for it. What steps would you take? How would you adapt? By doing this, you're not inviting trouble, you're building confidence. You're reminding yourself that no matter what comes your way, you have the tools to handle it. And that's the kind of confidence that doesn't just silence self-doubt, it transforms it into strength. As we come to the end of this journey through the 18 Stoic Truths, let's take a moment to reflect on how these principles come together to form a powerful framework for overcoming self-doubt and insecurities. Each truth builds upon the last, creating a sturdy foundation for inner resilience. From understanding the impermanence of external circumstances to focusing on what's within our control, these teachings remind us that our strength lies not in avoiding challenges but in how we respond to them. They teach us to embrace discomfort as a teacher, to reframe setbacks as opportunities, and to cultivate a mindset of gratitude and self-awareness. Together, these truths form a roadmap for navigating life's uncertainties with confidence and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most profound voices, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words capture the essence of Stoic philosophy, the recognition that true power comes from within. No matter what life throws your way, you have the capacity to choose how you respond. That's the beauty of these truths. They don't just help you overcome self-doubt, they empower you to reclaim your sense of agency and purpose. Now, it's your turn to put these principles into action. Start small. Maybe it's practicing mindfulness when doubt creeps in, or reminding yourself of what's truly within your control when faced with a challenge. The key is consistency. Over time, these practices will become second nature, transforming how you see yourself and the world around you. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these Stoic truths resonates most with your life? How do you plan to apply them moving forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm always eager to hear your perspectives. And if you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more insights on how Stoicism can help you live a more intentional and fulfilling life. Until next time, remember, the strength you seek is already within you. You just have to tap into it.